All right. Welcome again to another session of the 15th annual Transforming the Teaching and Learning Environment virtual conference. I'm Bob Ailes. I'm your moderator. Our presenter is Melissa Dino. No, I always, wait,
Daniel.
I'm sorry.
Daniel.
I never would have guessed that.
That's okay. Most people don't. Don't worry about it.
Melissa has taught in higher ed for over 20 years. She started when she was like 8 years old.
Right.
I've been teaching online since the early 2000s and delivered a variety of courses online, hybrid, flex, and on-campus courses, and many have been QM certified. Uh, and loves to serve students while preparing them for the real world beyond traditional textbooks. Yes. And that's more and more of a focus of higher ed. So today, she's going to talk about how to virtual events for large section courses, preparing students for post-COVID work world with the help of industry partners. So
Yes.
Melissa, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you. Josh, I think with your role, you're really going to appreciate this content. Okay. Just because if you're all about engaging businesses or industry with your institution, this might, hopefully you leave with some ideas. All right. So as Bob said, my name's Melissa Daniel. I've been teaching a long time. What a lot of people don't know about me is I never planned to teach. I had a dean find me by accident over 20 years ago and said, hey, can I have your resume? And I just started teaching a little bit on the side. Little did I know that it would turn into a full-time job. I was there for 15 years. And while I was there, I actually helped out some other institutions along the way. I'm now a full-time assistant professor of management and entrepreneurship at Mankato State. This is our agenda, what I plan to talk to you about. I'll just give you a little bit more background about me, but I'm going to go through that quickly along as Bob already covered most of that. I also want to talk to you about why this topic, and just so you know, you can apply this to other things as well. My main goal for you is that you leave today feeling inspired, so you know that you can do this. You can tweak it to what you need to do. But my main thing is I just don't want, if something like COVID happens again, and at our institution, we were all sent home for a while, then we were brought back for a week or two, then we were sent back home again, and then we were brought back. And I truly believe something like that could probably happen again and most likely will happen again. And, you know, I'm all about supporting mental health of students, but I'm also about supporting mental health of the faculty that have to adjust, because what I do at my institution is serve 350 to 400 students a semester. And in the class that I did this mock interview with, that impacted almost 300 students in a 2.5 hour block. And we were able to pull something off that was so good and so powerful. Since we've been able to come back on campus, we've kept it virtual. Okay, because of increased industry partner participation. So I'm going to walk you through the background, the why, also how to do it yourself. I do have some checkpoints during the presentation where you can ask questions, but know that I'm super casual. Don't feel like you can't come off of mute and ask a question at any time. All right, so most of this Bob has already covered, so I'm just going to skip through this. One thing that I would say to you is that I personally consider us like in a post-COVID work world, but I believe that something like COVID will always be something that we have to deal with, because we just never know when something's going to happen. So I think we need to always be prepared to be able to pivot. And because of that, I think it's essential for faculty today to be very well versed in technology. I've used a lot of things along the way. I would also tell you, you don't always have to be paying for things. A lot of the things that I have listed here are free, but be willing to explore. If you're not a faculty and you're in administration or staff, encourage your people to explore technology, because that's what is going to help reduce their stress. Because then if something happens and we get sent home again and we have to be online, it's not going to be a big deal because you're already ready. And that's my goal for you, is to help prepare you for being ready. And one of the things I just want to highlight here, and Bob mentioned that, yes, I do truly have a heart for serving students. My big thing is I want students to be more than a degree and a GPA. I want them, when they graduate, I want them to get the call. I want them to be ready. I want them to be prepared. I want them to know that you have to be able to set yourself apart from the competition. And in doing so, I push my students pretty hard. If you were to ask them, they'll tell you that I work them hard, but I'm fair, I'm honest, I care, I put in as much effort as they do, but I want students to know that they're never alone. And whenever I'm doing an online, hybrid, or any kind of virtual environment, I want students to have like a real life experience, a comfort of an on-campus class or experience, but literally from the convenience of their sofa. So how did this topic come to be? Well, I've already kind of previewed that. I remember I came back from an Academy of Business Management conference in March in San Antonio, March 2020, had to leave that conference early because they were shutting down all of the flights, and got back to find out we had 2 weeks mandatory online and we had to switch all of our classes online. I bet if you all had your cameras on, you would be nodding your head and you would be remembering this. For me, that was over 300 students. Many of the students were international students, and at our institution, international students have to be on campus because of they just don't have the comfort with technology, and that's what they want. So we were dealing with technology challenges with that student body, as well as language barriers as well. But I had to flip them online, and not to mention time zone changes if they were able to go home. Okay, so for me, what I did is I did everything I could to try to keep things as similar or the same as possible. And the reason I did that is because I had my own kids at home in school at the time. Now I have one now in college, but she was, I don't know, sophomore, junior, and the other one in, I don't know, maybe 8th, 9th grade. And I've got to tell you, it was terrible on those kids. They missed the socialization. They hated being on home and online. And I think that's what scared them most, is that everything was so different. And so I felt kind of like a mom, in the sense that, how can I help reduce fear for these people when change comes their way, is to try to keep things as similar as possible and not cancel. I was seeing with my own kids disappointment because this was canceled, this was canceled, this was canceled. They didn't even know if they'd have a basketball season canceled, right? And so I thought, I'm going to try to do my part to give them something to look forward to. So within 2 weeks, I flipped our virtual event, which interviews about 300 students in 2.5 hours. Okay, to completely virtual. Not to mention, I also did a networking event like this, which is maybe another presentation down the road. But this worked really well. And I will tell you, we've kept this and haven't changed back. And I'll tell you why. Industry partner participation. I now integrate about 80 industry partners in my class throughout the semester, just with touch points, whether it be a guest speaker, a panel, helping with the virtual mock interview, networking event. And I've got to tell you, when I started here, spring of 19, there were, well, first they didn't even do the interview, but when I first introduced it, it was on campus. I think we had 2 industry partners that helped. And then then it grew to like 4 and then 6, but I never really broke that 10 plateau with it being on campus. Having to go virtual because of COVID, I had industry partners knocking down the door to participate because I think they too were looking for something. They were looking for something to be a part of and interact with students, and they loved it. And I've got to tell you, this last fall, I had 35 industry partners help with this mock interview, to the point I had so many that I'm not going to have that many again, because with too many, you get another set of complications. And so what I'm telling you is if you want industry partners to participate, you need to consider making events virtual. And it does not compromise quality, at least not something like this, because my industry partners tell me I don't have to drive to campus. I can block my hour of time to help you, or 2 hours, go right back to work, and they do it. And I have repeat helpers that say, I want to do your events because they're easy, they're organized. And like I said, it's just the time of the event. They don't have to mess around coming to campus. And I will tell you, the more partners that you can have help you, the smaller your interview groups can be. And it just provides a more lifelike event. I will also say you don't want one-on-one. Industry partners and students have said the best number is 2 to 4. They really like having the small group interview because then students can hear what other students have to say, as well as the industry partner feedback to that student as well. So I've already covered this. And I would also say this just, I did this at the time because I felt like it was the right thing to do. I'm now doing a lot of research on this and publications on this. This just isn't a Melissa being a mom to her students. This is supported by research. I don't know if you do any reading, but the Asia Pacific Journal, they do a lot of stuff in regard to the new work world and how we need to better prepare our students for it. In fact, when I poll my industry partners, they tell me that since COVID, their first round of interviews, they don't even do anything in person. Everything is virtual. And they say that students don't have those skills. They don't think about background. They don't think about lighting. They don't think about having swervy chairs. They don't think about eye contact. They don't think about beer cans and flags, hanging up in the back of in the back of the camera view. They don't even sometimes think about the importance of having equipment that works. And so the more we can prepare them with these events, I think the better we're going to be preparing them for this new work world. All right, so to set the stage before we get into actually helping you do the event yourself or have the tools to do the event yourself, I want you to know that when we do this interview, it's a part of a unit. We start the unit with an industry partner panel, about 4 to 6 industry partners that address questions that students want to know on traits to be successful in their field or in their major. Students have already completed their resume and their cover letter. They are interviewing, and then they're going to be ending with a LinkedIn profile and networking event. So that's kind of the flow of everything. Now, let's see. My end goal for this activity is just to help students be more comfortable so they can participate, because I believe, and industry partners will tell you, the best thing we can do for students is have them practice, practice, practice. Okay. Let's see. I would also tell you that virtual events support course objectives. So don't feel like they're not good enough. And the reason I want to mention that is I've taught a long time, folks. I started teaching online in Minnesota in the early 2000s. Okay. And so I've went through WebCT, I've went through Desire to Learn, I've seen Moodle, I've seen Canvas, you name it. And I will tell you, there's also been a season where online classes were thought of as less than on-campus classes. I'm a big believer in anything you do is what you make of it, right? You can have a great online class, you can have a crappy on-campus class, right? So don't feel like you can't use virtual events to support a course objective, because you can. Okay, you can. Now, event preparation. This is what the students are told prior to the event. They are prepared for appropriate dress. Okay. We talk about how to handle your nerves, build confidence. We talk about just background stuff, like, when you go into an interview dealing with the gatekeeper, when you should arrive, your 20-second first impression. We talk about illegal versus legal interview questions, taking interview tests, and then they practice and kind of build those skills with some quizzes that are over what we discuss in class, as well as some quizzes over some video simulations that I use. So they do have some good insight coming into the event. As I mentioned earlier, this is how many students that I have to do this in 2.5 hours. Okay. 245 of them are online, 245 are on campus students, 45 are online. How this shakes out is every student is assigned a 30-minute block. The students that are on campus don't get to choose their block. They get assigned a block that takes place during their class time. So there should be no complaining, because they signed up for that class. And so what they have to do is during that class time. My online students, I actually use a free tool called Doodle, and they are required to sign up for a time of their choice. I don't feel that it's right in an online class to demand a student come to a time or a short window. Otherwise, they wouldn't have signed up for an online class, right? But I have found that I have very few student complaints as long as I give them a range of times and they can select their own time. Okay. I tell them that there's a lot of points tied to it, 1 full letter grade, but they oftentimes get hung up on the quality of their answer. And I tell them that it's very low stakes. You need to be on time. You need to be dressed appropriately for an interview, at least from the waist up. I tell them, I don't care if you're in flannel pants and Birkenstocks, as long as you don't get up, right? But at least dressed appropriately from the waist up. And make sure your equipment is working. If we can't see and hear you, you can't participate, okay? And once you take away the whole idea of, is my answer good enough? That really helps reduce the stress, because the goal of the activity, honestly, is to make sure that the students have an opportunity to hear, because that's really where the learning takes place. Okay, so the industry partner asks student A this question, student A offers this answer. And then the industry partner is like, you know what, that was really good. Now, a way we could strengthen that is by doing this, 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 or this. Or I wouldn't maybe self-disclose that, because that's actually an illegal thing to ask anyway, so don't volunteer the information. That's where the learning takes place, as well as the opportunity to practice your own answer. And I will tell you, I survey students, I survey industry partners. There is going to be published research on this, and everybody loves it. Loves it, loves it, loves it. I do evaluations and they tell me this is one of the most beneficial assignments that we do in this class, and we do a lot of things. But before I get into the nuts and bolts of how to do it yourself, replicate the activity, do I have any questions so far?
Do you offer, and this may be on further, do you offer this to any employer on your listserv? Are you more targeted on who you reach out to, or is it a request from a faculty or students?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm actually going to be showing some sample emails in a little bit. So when but let me touch on it. That was a great question. So, when I started here, we had a gentleman so in our university is rather large. I mean, at least for our area, it's large. And we have 7 different colleges. I'm in the College of Business. Okay. In the College of Business, we actually have a foundations person, and their role is to go out and build relationships with industry partners. It might be what you do, actually, or similar to what you do. Build relationships with industry partners. They're often the ones that are on our advisory boards. They're also the ones that help, they provide scholarships. I'm going to be honest. They're the ones that provide a lot of internships for our students and so forth. And we find that those industry partners are always asking to give back. They want to do something. They don't know how to connect. So to get back to your question, I had a list from that foundation person specifically for the College of Business, the people that have maybe been on our boards, scholarships, have hosted our students for internships. And then honestly, I've just grown the list with my own professional contacts, because remember, I didn't come from education. I came from private sector. Right. So I reached out to those people, and I don't know, I probably have 150, 200 people on my list. For me, just my people, right? I do partner closely with the Career Development Center, and they oftentimes get hit up by businesses saying, hey, how can we get involved? And they oftentimes refer them to me. And then they get added to my list. So that's how my list grows. So my list isn't everyone for the university. It's my identified people for the College of Business. And it's usually about 200, 150, 200 people that get emailed every semester. And like I said, I usually have 80 people that help throughout the semester. I turn away people for the panel. I'm going to be turning away people for the interview because it just was too many last semester. I'll explain why. But I don't turn away people for our networking event. But I mean, for a class that meets once a week, to have 80 touch points with industry partners, that's a pretty big deal. So Josh, do you have like a little group of people that you work with for business? Because you said you're in business, right?
Well, we're the aviation and technology campus, so similar. Yeah,
Oh.
we are a college within our university. But I have probably multiple different functional areas of programs from aviation to our engineering, computer science, and things like that. So that really helps me out because I do have those partners coming to us that want to engage more than career fair.
Yeah,
And we are having, and sometimes it's hard to do that because some of our programs are smaller that, jobs just don't get filled, but we want to find a way to engage them. And so that's helpful versus me
Yep.
sending it out to the 400 people on our listserv. I can maybe target that
targeted.
down to
And,
our top ones.
and like for me, my challenge is this, the class that I teach and have this in, we have 5 business majors. Okay, finance, marketing, international business management, accounting. Well, now we have 6 ag businesses in there too. And this is a class that every business major has to take in order to get into the College of Business. And so I oftentimes hear from students, they wish that they could have interviewed with someone specific to their major, which I agree with that. The problem is there's only so much a gal can do with 300 students in 2.5 hours. So if you have the ability to do a couple of these and have it be more small and intimate and do it just for aviation, just for engineers, I mean, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. It's just, I grade 350 to 400 students a week by myself. I can't do that. You know what I mean? Not, yeah, unless they can, unless I'm duplicated. You know what I mean? So does that help you and address your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? If not, I want to get into the nuts and bolts of, how you could do this on your own. We good? I think so. All right. So here we go. Get your pen and paper ready. All right. So every semester, at the start of the semester, my industry partners are emailed. Okay. I've already set the dates for the events. And the reason why is because, well, how do I say? One of our events requires a big ballroom and it has limited availability. So honestly, that ballroom determines the schedule for the entire class. So as soon as I get that ballroom secured for a different event, my industry partners get an email. Now, for the purposes of data privacy, I just brought over the content here of the email. And basically I just say, hi, how you doing? These are our activities that you can do. Here's the panel. Here's just a 1-sentence one-off on what it is. Here's the date. Here's the section, virtual mock interview, date, sections, networking. And I even throw a little shout out that you might appreciate, Josh. Hey, we always have guest speaking opportunities. If that's of interest, let me know. We reach about 300 students, right? In our sections. And this is the email that they get. Okay. Now, based on that email, I just start having emails come flooding in. Okay. Now, and usually they only reply if they want to, and they'll say, yep, section 1, yep, section 2. But honestly, most of my people do both, because they like it. And plus, employees need to be doing something usually anyways to give back to their community. So I make these big, huge tables of their names, their company, what semester, if they're coming, yes, no. Does that make sense? For everything that I'm doing, that's what I'm tracking. And then I use that, I have that, and I keep updating that for probably about 2 weeks. And then honestly, I send out one more all call about 2 weeks after it goes out. And then I usually get a few more stragglers that say, yep, yep, yep. And then as soon as I feel like I have all of the emails in, oh, shoot, it's not gonna open it up. Well, what that was is it was a screenshot, honestly, of an Outlook calendar, so you could see the calendar block. So that's actually the next thing that they get. The people that have said yes on that table then get an Outlook invite, either for section 1, section 2, or both. Okay. And then that blocks their calendar as well. Okay. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can go about this. The way I used to go about this is that I let the industry partner that volunteered tell us what technology they wanted to use. Some at their company like Zoom, some like Skype for Business, some liked WebEx, some Ring Central. And I didn't have a problem with that. In fact, I actually thought it was a good thing, because what happens then when students get out, graduate, and they have to, in our institution, they only have experience via Zoom, right? What happens if they're like, oh, we're going to do an interview Ring Central, and it like spooks them? And so my thought is, the more they have exposure to these different things, the better prepared they'll be, right? And they'll see that, oh, you might have to install something. Oh, it works just like Zoom. Well, full disclosure, I did it that way for several semesters, but I always had about a handful of students that would say to me during the event, oh, their link didn't work, or some sort of technology issue. Now, I don't know if it didn't work. I'll tell you why. I don't think that was the issue here in a little bit, or if they just forgot or showed up late. But you know, it's a hopping event. I've got people coming in and out of rooms all the time. You know, I'm the IT person for the whole event. I just wanted to take that away. Yeah, honestly, it was just one extra piece of work for me I didn't want to deal with. I'm not going to lie. And so what I tried about a year ago, I think it was last spring semester, I tried, you know what? I'm going to use Zoom. I'm going to give the students and the industry partners all my Zoom, right? And then I made breakout rooms for each industry partner. And I'll tell you why that has worked really well. Because the students, I take that whole obstacle away. I've yet to have a student say to me, oh, I can't get in, the link doesn't work, because we've used the link before for class, right? So I know that it works. Two, if you preset the breakout rooms, there's no work for them. They just get routed right out to the breakout room. The other thing that's really cool about doing it that way is that because I'm hanging out in the main room before they get sent out to their breakout rooms, I can see who shows up late. And remember, I said you're graded if you're on time, because you don't want to be late for a real interview. If you're dressed appropriately and if your technology is working correctly, we can see and hear you. And so then I see if someone's not dressed appropriately, if they're late, and I can make note of that. Does that make sense? So that's why I do that. But I think both provide value. Okay. Then you're going to love this, but you got to keep in mind, I'm dealing with a lot of students. I make an interview schedule, and this interview schedule is actually not that hard to make. You take the student name right out of the class list. They're assigned a 30-minute window during their class time. They're assigned an industry partner, right? And then their link. This was back when they all had their own link, right? But now I would just have my Zoom link. And I will tell you as a tip, we tried last semester just to have the Zoom link up here, just to keep the document a little bit more concise. And we got rid of it right here. Even though it was up here in bold, in red, I did have a lot of questions right at the start of the event. I can't find the link. Where's the link? They couldn't see it up here. But I never had that when I had them off here to the side. So even if you're repeating the link for every single student, I would just put it there. Okay. And I did something like this for every single section. Okay. It's not that hard, actually. And then here is the free doodle poll. Here's a sample of that. I'm just going to bring that over here. Giving you an idea of, here are the times. The students will type in their name, and then they'll list, and I tell them in the instructions to list every single time that could possibly work for you. Okay. And then I guarantee them that they get assigned a time slot that they signed up for, so they can't complain about it later because they pick the time. Okay. Now, the next thing that I would tell you is that for this to be successful, and for your industry partners to love it, and for them to keep coming back semester after semester, you need to have clear communication. But you also don't want to have so much communication that they zone you out. Okay. So I send an email at the start of the semester. Hey, these are our events. Who's interested in what? I start tracking, blah, 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 blah. Right before I do my calendar invite. Hey, last call. This event is full. This event needs 2 more people. This event is still open. Do I have any, bar closed type of a situation, right? And I get a few more stragglers, and then I send out my calendar invite. Then they really don't hear from me. they don't hear from me again. They're busy working professionals until 2 weeks before the event. 2 weeks before the event. I want to start having them think about it, because this is the thing. I have a lot riding on them showing up, because I don't want to make this interview schedule again. You saw how, I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it's not so much fun that you want to do it a half a dozen times. And so I send them an email 2 weeks ahead of time. Thank you so much for agreeing, blah, 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 blah. Here's the directions packet. Here are step-by-step instructions. I even address common student questions. If students have technology challenges, what to tell them. And I even give them sample interview questions, but tell them in that first page, you're welcome to come up with your own. Here's just some, because you want to make it easy for them. And then I even show them a sample of what they're going to get. So all of those students that were on a table and they had an industry partner name next to them, it's all broken down into these tables right like this. Okay. And each industry partner gets one for every single time slot, 9 to 9:30. The next one would be 9:30 to 10, 10 to 10:30, and so forth. And the reason I do it this way is this: you could have them all be on one, you could, but this is why I don't, because I have found over the semesters that oftentimes industry partners handwrite during the interview. They handwrite notes, like if someone was late, if they weren't dressed appropriately, whatever the case may be. And I've got to tell you, when I'm going to post grades for nearly 300 students, if something isn't clear, or they say 5 minutes late, and then a student emails me, and once they see there's a point deduction, well, I wasn't late. I need to be able to communicate with that industry partner within 24 hours. So things are still fresh for them. So they can say, he was in a white t-shirt. I totally remember that. Right. And I go by what the industry partner says, or yes, no, they were late, or yes, they were late, but then they joined another session. Please disregard those comments. But I like to give them separate sheets, because they do utilize this down here. And what they utilize down here actually helps me a lot if I have questions, if I'm in a position where I have to deduct. Okay. All right. So, okay. So now 2 weeks before the event, I give them the direction packet. Okay. About 1 week before the event, I give each industry partner their own schedule, right? And this is something for every single session, right? And you can see the time and their students and so forth, right? Okay. So they have a communication 2 weeks out, 1 week out. And then honestly, they don't hear from me again until the day before the event. Hi, just a reminder, I have you down for tomorrow. Here is my personal cell phone number. In case you have any technology challenges, please don't give that out to students, but it's for you if you need me, or email me. I will be up on, I'll have email up, and I do have it up, and I'm constantly putting out fires during the event. If students have any trouble, email me, have them email me, and I will help them. Now, if you want to duplicate this, like I said earlier, 2 to 4, 2 to 5 max. The reason I'm telling you this number isn't because of well, I shouldn't say it's not because of articles that I've read. It's because of students I've surveyed, and I've surveyed nearly 300 of them every semester for probably 5 or 6 semesters. I also interview the industry partners, and that's what they say. Okay. All right. The other thing that I want to tell you, if this is going to be successful, if we have communication with industry partners, we also have to have industry communication with our students. Oh, shoot, that's not opening either. Sorry about that. But I will have announcements. I'll actually make them in advance, and I will have them scheduled to go off. So you're going to laugh, but the first day of class, I highlight the interview event and the networking event right away. And they should be there anyways, because most of them are on campus, but I highlight it for the online students too. And I say, hey, you've got 3 or 4 weeks notice here. This is not the day you want to pick up an extra shift at work. Okay. Put this in your calendar, put it in now, be prepared. I would say probably a month prior to the event, as soon as we start kind of getting into the resume, panel, cover letter, I start posting announcements like, if you haven't already blocked your calendar, don't forget these 2 big ticket events, right? Coming up on these dates. And then a reminder 2 weeks out, 1 week out, the day before. I even honestly, I do a reminder, an announcement the morning of, hey, see you in a couple of hours. And you would be amazed, the students that are like, oh man, I totally forgot about that, right? And the other thing that if you're dealing with students, a lot of times students don't have appropriate attire on campus for interviews. So you need to give them a heads up of this early. So if they're going home for Thanksgiving break, usually this is like right after Thanksgiving, they can pick something out and bring it home. Or if they go home for Easter or spring break, so you give them enough time so they're not in a position where they feel like they have to go buy something. Okay. All right. The other thing that I want to tell you is that you want to, after the event, I don't know why none of this is working. I'm so sorry. After the event that day, you want to send an email out to your industry partners thanking them for their time. So if your event ends at like 3, I'd say by like 5, thank you so much. I've already received great feedback from students, because usually by then you'll have already had a few emails from students thanking you for the opportunity. Just a reminder, I would value your completed schedule sessions. I call them their graded interview schedules. That's those individual tables for each 30-minute window. If I can please have those back by 5 p.m. tomorrow, right? So that's what you want to send out. I'd also encourage you to post an announcement for your students and tell them how proud you are of them for attending. With nearly 300 students, and we all maybe struggle sometimes with engagement, I will tell you, I very rarely have anybody miss this stuff. So that's another reason to do things like this. Students participate. They love it. They love it. Industry does too. Okay, so the day of the event, the faculty, I provide to the faculty my personal web room in my Zoom room 30 minutes prior to the event, just in case somebody wants to log in and ask any questions. There are some semesters I don't have anybody log in. There are other semesters I maybe have one industry partner. But the thing of it is, if it makes them feel more comfortable just to pop in, great. So I have that there. The other thing you should know, as soon as the first session begins, I start double checking to make sure everything is working perfectly. So I have a whole list of all of the industry partners that are participating, right? And their links. Unless I'm using Zoom, I just go right into the breakout room, and I keep a table myself, and I can show you what that looks like at the end if it's a value. And I jot down or type the time that I entered that room. And the reason I keep working my little tail off to get through every single session is because then I know that the link worked or the breakout room worked. So if a student emails me later and says, oh, it's not my fault, because I do get that, I'm not lying. It didn't work. And I'll be like, really? I've been in there 3 times. Really? Click on this link, and then I will look for you, and then I will help move you to the breakout room if you're having trouble. But it's hard for you to have documentation to reduce their grade if you haven't went in there and checked it out yourself. So that's the first thing you want to do. Last fall, I had 35 industry partners. I only got through everybody's room once. I try to get through it twice, but that's what I meant by sometimes it can get just to be too much. Okay. I would also tell you, make sure you have your email up and open, have your cell phone beside you. I think I've only had one industry partner call me. I usually get emails, but not from industry partners, usually from students. Okay. And it's something silly. So I direct them, or I just put the link right in the week because they didn't open the table in their week, even though they've seen it in class. And sometimes they maybe just have to switch a browser. I will tell you, I don't really have a lot of tolerance for tardiness when it comes to this kind of stuff, because you wouldn't leave a very positive impression with an interviewer if you were late. But sometimes, sometimes it's just easier to get students through the experience. So because it is a valuable experience. So if they had a 1 o'clock session and they're 10 minutes late and there is a 1:30, I will just tell them, you know what, I'll move you to the 1:30. and they're usually very thankful. Okay. Now, this is maybe what you're going to appreciate, Josh. I'm here to tell you this is successful, not just with industry and students, but if you're a 4-year institution, you're trying to establish partnerships with 2-year institutions. This particular person is a VP of a 2-year school who used to be a dean at a different school, who I know I would adjunct for them back when I was younger and had more time. But he came on board for me because one of my industry partners canceled at the last minute. And I threw a little shout out to a select group of people that I knew had the right kind of personality for this. And I said, hey, I just had somebody cancel. Is anybody free to help? And you need to know this guy, love him dearly, but he's kind of hard to please. I'm not going to lie. So for him to tell you, thank you, great opportunity, very impressed. I mean, it doesn't really get any better than that. So I would tell you, don't just invite industry, invite leaders at your area 2-year schools that you're looking for feeders into your 4-year school. Because especially if they're in a position where they have multiple 4 years kind of wooing them for articulation agreements, right? If you bring them in, they see the quality of what you do, right? And, it just might help you become their more preferred partner. Okay. All right. This is from an industry partner. Here you go. Thanks again for putting on a great event. Students were all engaged and they participated. Great to see you. Thank you for a fun afternoon with such inspiring students as always. Blah, blah, you did an amazing job. MSC blah, blah. Okay, sorry. Your willingness to involve community members, appreciation for our participation, and clarity in communication and expectations make it so easy to say yes every time. So make sure you're clear, make sure you have a schedule. And I will tell you, I'm so stinking busy with my student load. I would tell you to put calendar reminders in your calendar now and have them at the start of the semester. So you don't forget 2-week message, 1-week message, day before message, because it's super easy to forget. Here is an example of somebody from our own institution that helped. This particular person is a staff person, not faculty. They help students find internships, but it's a great way to partner with your career development center. They've helped with this and the area that does your internship, because again, they feel a part of what you do. They're all about career readiness as well. And it's a great touch point for them to have the students in front of them to realize, hey, after class, I could be your resource, right? Okay. Oh, and then here's the detail. I only had 1 no-show, right? Out of 300 students, that isn't too darn bad. But this kind of stuff is helpful. And I bet if I opened up her sessions, this would be on her comments as well. Student satisfaction, this always means so much, especially when they send it to you the same stinking day of the event. How many times do students say thank you? I mean, I just treasure that. I mean, they do, but it seems like you get more like they're mad than thank you. So I really treasure this stuff. Thank you for providing us with this mock interview opportunity. I'm going to be speaking with so-and-so for a phone call this morning about a possible internship opportunity. So, I mean, this kind of stuff, I mean, it's all about relationships, right? And they're just, they're thankful. Here's another reason you as a faculty want to be the IT and not be participating in the interview itself, because this student had some sort of issue. I don't recall what it was. They emailed me. I was able to do a little Zoom with them, kind of help them, and they were able to get on their interview on time, so they weren't deducted, right? And they're thankful for that. So you need to be available, but I will tell you, by the time the event is over, between you managing, your emails of something's not working, to checking to make sure everybody's link is working. And, we even take some screenshots of the event and we use it for marketing as well. I'm sweating. You would have thought I worked out, but I didn't. Did this event. So before we go on to the next section, do I have any questions thus far? Josh, do you feel like you have enough background where you kind of see the pieces that are needed?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Happen? Good.
Yep, absolutely. I'm definitely thinking of ways that this can be adapted for our side for sure. Absolutely.
Good. Do you have a question for me, or do you want me just to move on and then ask any remaining questions at the end?
Yeah, no, not about that part. That was good for me. So we can just continue and I may have some here at the end.
Okay, perfect, perfect. All right, so changes, goals, and tips to keep in mind. You might like this, okay? I've already told you to promptly express appreciation to students and industry partners. Also in that email or that class announcement where you're saying, I'm so proud of you, say, hey, I encourage you, if you liked your industry partner, if you felt a connection, you learned something about that business that excited you, reach out to them via LinkedIn. Start building your professional network now. Okay. And the industry partners love it and they welcome it. Okay. I very rarely have to track down people to get their assignments, but that's why or their completed scoring sheets, but that's why you want to kind of politely harass them right away the day of, when you send them the email the day before saying, here's my information, blah, 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 the morning of, hey, good morning, see you in a few hours. Just a reminder, if I can have those, filled out sheets within 24 hours, that would be wonderful, and then after the event, thank you so much, blah, 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 blah. Don't forget, I need the sheets, blah, 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 blah. And usually I have them all by the end of business day. This last semester, because I had 35 people, there were a couple of people I had to track down, which I finally got it. But I would tell you, the more partners you have, the more of that you need to expect. I would also say the more partners that you say, yes, they're going to come, the more partners that will have last minute cancellations, kind of like how Bob dealt with this event right before the start of the event. It happens. And the bigger your event is, the more that happens. And so what I am doing this semester, what I've done before is I've really taken everybody that has said yes, because I wanted the group small enough to mimic a real life one-on-one experience, right? But then the industry and students are saying, 2 to 5 is the strongest. So, okay, fine. Plus, I didn't want to deal with all this cancellation business again, because it was a nightmare. I mean, I was even having cancellations the morning of, where students were scheduled. And so this is what I'm now doing. I'm dividing the students by the time we have to get the number to between 2 and 5 students per group. That's the amount of industry partners I'm going after. If I get more volunteers than that, I'm putting them on like a backup list saying, hey, I thank you so much. I would like to block your calendar for if we have a cancellation, which that does happen. So, because what you'll find, at least this is what I found. I had this fall, I don't know, maybe a half a dozen cancel within, 24, 48 hours with students already scheduled. Only one of them provided their own backup, which I thought was very not cool. I know if I wasn't going to be able to make it, I would have found someone to do it for me. Right. And so I'm like finding people at the last minute, right, to make it happen. And so what I would say to you is get down to your number, have a little handful of people to call on. I have 3 people on backup for this spring semester now, and I'm also keeping it to less than 35. I think our magic number is maybe around like 20. And so less partners, less cancellations, right? And then I have some backup, and I might still have some last minute, triage I need to do, but at least I have some people ready to step in. The other thing that I would tell you to do, I send handwritten notes to every single partner that helps with every event that I do. I also send a gift. And it doesn't have to be anything elaborate, but like I think this semester or last semester I did like a deck of cards with our college logo on it. I think this semester I'm doing like pizza cutters with our logo on it, something that can easily be mailed. But the handwritten note, you would be amazed when I've stopped in their office, they're on their walls because they don't get them that often. Okay. The other tip I would tell you is start planning now. If you know when it's going to be, if you have on-campus students and they have to show up in that time window and can't complain about the time, start scheduling them now. Okay, because that's not going to change. I would advise you against scheduling an online student, or I would advise you against scheduling a student outside of the required class time, because you don't want some sort of issue or complaint that, they have to skip another class to come to this. And I would, like I said, give them notice week 1, day 1, block your calendar, right? Don't pick up a work shift. I think I've already told you this. I've told you about the surveys. I've told you why their technology versus breakout rooms, the pros and cons of both. I've told you about having some backup helpers. The other thing that I would tell you is make sure if you do this for your students, you need to make sure that you have enough points tied to the assignment that the students show up. The last thing you want is rooms empty for industry partners. That would look really unprofessional. Okay. I've already told you about the clear communication and the communication tips and when I would be sending this stuff. Future goals for me or things that I'm going to do is it was a great change to go to the breakout rooms. I've already told you I'm limiting the partners and I have backup interviewers. And then I'm going to continue to work with our foundation and the Career Development Center just to continue to grow my industry leads. Because like you just said, they want to participate. You're not quite sure how to do it. And then I guess for final thoughts, I would say to you, you can do this and students appreciate it. And you know what my hope is that I've not only given you an idea on how to do it, but I want to equip you so you are prepared for the next time we get thrown online. So we aren't disappointing students and quitting everything around them and canceling everything around them. I want you to see that we can press on. And in this particular situation, I pressed on. And I'm not going back. It's made it better. It made it better. More industry partner help. And honestly, it's helped me too, because with that volume of students, I mean, having to flip online, if I wasn't prepared for it, yeah, I just don't know. I'm getting too old, I think. So I would tell you just to be prepared for yourself, for your students. And then I want you to know, just like I shared with you at the start, where I said students aren't alone in my classes, you're not alone either. So feel free, write down my office number, write down my email. You know, I'm happy to help you. I mean, I really do want to help you. And feel free and contact me if you have any questions. So that's what I have. And I have about 3 minutes left for questions.
Yeah, about 30 seconds left for questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it went till 2. I apologize.
But you
I
know,
just-
early on, what you said is people don't know how to properly prepare for a Zoom session in terms of lighting and camera framing and everything involved with it. Nowadays, that's an important thing to know. And they go in the workforce, they better know how to do this or they won't be as successful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, my industry partners said that they don't even do in-person interviews now until the final one.
Yeah.
Josh, how can I help you in our final seconds?
No, this is very helpful. I think we have tried mock interviews in their old way, and they were not successful because we either had industry partners that were willing to do it, but the student involvement was not there, or vice versa. But this can really help us, especially because we are not centrally located to any towns that are close to us. So the virtual opportunity to bring industry from Kansas City and Wichita that they wouldn't travel up for a mock interview, but if we could do a virtual opportunity, and I agree, most companies especially are doing Zoom interviews for your first introductory. They're not bringing you on site until you get farther in. So you need to be able to have this initial to even get you to an in-person interview.
And I would tell you, I have industry partners helping now, meaning companies that are participating that the college has never had participating before because it's virtual. Virtual. So
Well,
I'm
I
going
gotta
to close
go.
with this. Okay.
But I
All
gotta
right.
get to the next one.
All right. Well,
Oh,
I
I'd
hope
love
you
to talk
see-
longer.
I will reach out to you, Melissa, for sure.
Okay, sounds good. I'd love your feedback, both of you. If you were to read a journal article on this, a how to duplicate this, would you read this?
Yes.
Okay. All right,
Yeah,
good.
absolutely.
All right. Well, good luck to you. Thanks,
Thank
Bob.
you.
Have a great day.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.